I will call the meeting to order. Thank you very much, everyone, for being here tonight. And I will do the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that the land on which we gather is in the traditional territory of the Coast and Straits Salish peoples. Specifically, we recognize the Lekwungen peoples, known today as the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and that their historic connections to these lands continue to this day. And tonight, I'm departing a little bit from our standard mayor's remarks agenda, and I have remarks this evening that I will read now, and thank you. We come together tonight with heavy hearts after the tragic accident last week that claimed the life of a member of our employee family, Steve Seekins, while he was working for our community. We want to express on behalf of all members of council our deepest and most sincere condolences to Kathy and her family at this most difficult and painful time. We want to first recognize and acknowledge Steve's colleagues who worked directly with him, our entire employee family, and all members of Oak Bay Council who are feeling this loss very deeply, and to acknowledge the efforts made by all of you to help and support the family during this tragedy. We want to specifically recognize the tremendous efforts of our first responders, Oak Bay firefighters and police personnel, as well as the BC Ambulance Service, all of whom did everything within their power and more to assist at the scene and beyond. We also want to acknowledge the tremendous community outpouring of condolences and support from our own staff, our mayor and council, and members of our community, to cabinet members of the provincial government, and to CRD staff and sister municipalities across the region and the island. And through so many acts of kindness and generous contributions made to the GoFundMe account that has been established for Kathy and the family. We know there are many more community activities planned in support of the family, and we are all truly grateful for such caring support. On Thursday of this week, please note that there is a fundraising barbecue event sponsored by the Oak Bay Business Improvement Association on the front lawn at Municipal Hall. It will run from 11 o'clock to 2 p.m., and all food for this event has been generously donated by Oak Bay's local businesses, and the proceeds will be donated directly to the family. There will also be a small motorcade of vehicles representing the CRD and other municipalities who will be paying tribute to Steve. At this time, I ask for a moment of silence to remember Steve and to honor Kathy and her family. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now we move on to the approval of the agenda. And could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Appleton. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. 3, adoption of the minutes. These are the regular council meeting minutes from May the 8th. And there is a recommendation. And are there any errors, omissions, or deletions? And may I have a motion, please, to adopt the minutes? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Appleton. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. And the regular council meeting minutes of May 8th. Again, a recommendation, and I'm looking for a motion to approve these minutes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Smart.
Through you, Mayor, could I just check in with Mr. Coates? I did have a particular motion that I just wanted to perhaps look at the wording of, I believe it was from these minutes.
Mr. Coates?
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to clarify on that question, so there has been an item added to the agenda, whether or not sponsored by Councillor Smart to have council reconsider a motion that was passed at the May 8th meeting, and that wouldn't affect the minutes because that was actually the motion that council carried, and this would just be subsequent to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Smart. Did I call the question? Yes, I did. I think I did, yes. Moving on to, bear with me, this is, we don't do this that often, our, the sort of working group, so it's a new experience. Mayor's remarks. So the only remarks I have under Mayor's remarks tonight, I just wanted to remind everyone, and the community in particular, that the launch of our annual community questionnaire is launched, I believe, today, Mr. Coates, and it can be found on the Oak Bay website. Are there any questions or discussion about this issue? Okay, so please, I'm appealing to the community now. Please fill out the questionnaire. We really rely on this feedback, particularly following a time of some disengagement by the community during COVID and so on. So it would be really important to hear from all of you through the questionnaire. So thank you very much. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for that. When are the responses due back? I haven't looked at it. I must admit, I haven't looked at it yet.
It was just launched today, so
Yeah.
no worries.
So when are the
Mr. Coates.
responses back?
What is the time period for the questionnaire? Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. I must apologize that I don't have that information in front of me. I would imagine it's probably the month, but I can take a quick look and check back with council on that once I've done that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Oh, someone wants in? Yeah, we don't often get people knocking to come in. Thank you. I'm moving on now to public comment and question period, and this is an opportunity for everyone, members of the public in particular, to speak to us either through attending the meeting or online, and to address council on topics that directly impact the community. And when you come up to the front, if you're here in person, I believe we have at least one speaker in person. If you can just state your name, the municipality of residence, and the topic of your remarks. And if you can keep your remarks to 3 minutes, that would be great. And welcome, Ms. Kirby, former councillor Michelle Kirby. Oh, press the button. Yeah.
The speaker button. There we go. And do I need to move it closer or can you hear me? You can hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. And thank you, Mayor, or Acting Mayor.
Thanks.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. My name is Michelle Kirby, as you mentioned. I'm a resident of Oak Bay. And I'm here to speak to the Cool Kit project, as I am aware that's on the agenda tonight. Osiam Nuchelacha, my honorable friends, Haichka Gwens Anatakal Lakwanan Tanalth. Thank you for meeting on the Lekwungen land, the land of the smoked herring. And I'd like to acknowledge that I'm an uninvited settler on the territory of the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations who have stewarded these lands for since time immemorial. Given that Cool Kit's Year 1 report is on tonight's agenda, I'd like to take one last opportunity to ask for your support of the Dalhousie Street Oak Bay Cool Kit initiative. You may be aware that 5 residents of the 2200 block of Dalhousie Street participated in the inaugural cohort of the Cool Kit program. And our project has been to adapt and mitigate climate by adding trees to our street. We've planted many trees on our own private property, among many other climate activities, gardening, etc. We included climate action as a big part of our annual block party, but there's a gap we need your help to address. Oak Bay is planning to replace our street's 100-year-old, or maybe worse, sewer line, and we'll be digging up a trench the full length of our block. So we ask that you take this once-in-a-century opportunity to reduce the width of the street by installing curb extensions that make room for street trees. Our section of Dalhousie is very wide, 4 car lengths wide, which is unusual in Oak Bay. And that leaves us with a tiny 2-foot wide boulevard, which is inadequate space for Oak Bay to plant street trees. I know this because shortly after I moved here about 19 years ago, I canvassed my neighbors and we all signed a letter to Oak Bay Parks requesting that they plant some street trees. And they sadly informed me that there wasn't enough room in that 2-foot wide boulevard. So this sewer replacement project is that's just about to get underway is a chance to make room for those street trees. So I'd like to ask you to please seize the moment to redesign the street and make it safer for kids and pedestrians walking to École Willow School by planting trees that provide shade. This would meet the aim of the official community plan and the Complete Streets, Oak Bay Complete Streets policy by improving the safety of the throngs of kids and families that use our street to get to school every weekday morning by bike or on foot, and that use this access to the beach on weekends and throughout the summer. You would also be doing something to protect future generations of families who walk and bike this street from extreme temperatures in heat domes, which will be more frequent as our climate warms. We learned from the Cool Kit workshops that shade trees protect the asphalt from degrading as quickly. They absorb runoff from extreme rain events. Again, something else we'll see more of and have seen more of. Provide habitat for wildlife and add beauty. As our street design doesn't allow it, we ask that you include some bump outs for tree wells at intervals along our block as the sewer work is being done. These tree well bump outs from the sidewalk will allow for large canopy trees that will contribute to the Oak Bay goal of 40% tree canopy by 2030 and encourage the dedicated group of Cool Kit participants who attended all of the program events to see a result from our collective commitment to climate action. I hope that you will see how this might demonstrate that you are committed to the work of the Cool Kit program and inspire the community to lead to meaningful change, that our community efforts can mean something. Council declared a climate emergency in 2018. Please follow on that declaration with the same level of urgency that you applied to the pandemic. When businesses were struggling on the avenue, sidewalks were widened to make room for people to feel comfortable walking in the vicinity of each other. We had sidewalks widened and street side patios installed that provided an incredibly positive effect, not only for the businesses, but also for pedestrians and placemaking on the avenue. Please do not miss this opportunity to show you care as much about the safety, well-being, and future health of children in this community by supporting the improvements to Dalhousie Street. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kirby.
Any questions?
Does council have any questions? No. Thank you. Are there any other speakers, either waiting online or here in the chamber, that would like to speak? Just state your name and municipality. Thank you.
Prepared anything this time, but I did want to say that just in passing, in with respect to Michelle's point, is one of the programs or the options in the Cool Kit report was so I think most of you have read it, was that an option would be to change infrastructure, which includes the bump outs or whatever their technical term is. So I would, and you know, Bowker Creek Restoration fits into that. And there was Meadow Place, I think, also had some ideas. So I would just ask you to consider that it actually, the groups, Cool Kit groups actually did expect that was a possibility. I know that council, that Oak Bay has major financial constrictions, but on the other hand, planning for the future and is also extremely important. So it's important to look beyond the near term to to think about what the price is going to be if we don't do things like this. So just in general, I have to say that when I first started in CoolKit, I really thought, this is nice, but it's not really going to be very effective. It's great. And I went through a period when I did feel kind of like nothing much was being accomplished, and maybe we shouldn't maybe continue it for another term. And then I started thinking more about it, just what our neighborhood is doing, which we have 17 people in our group. But also, when I read the report by Stephen Shepard, I realized that, wow, a lot of other things are happening with other group, except Uplands. And my feeling is that's because their neighborhood is like they're very spread out, so they actually don't know each other very well. But anyway, excuse me. And today, you probably saw the report in the Times Colonist that the climate, I can't remember, the climate options group, whatever, it's an advisory board to government, has said that government should be spending money, should be diverting money from disaster relief to making our communities climate resilient. And that's exactly what CoolKit is doing. I don't know if you know, but I'm a part of the South Island Climate Action Network, which our group is the Oak Bay Climate Force. And they're interested in it too. I have someone in Toronto who wants to carry it out. The CoolKit Victoria is thinking of making its own initiative, which uses CoolKit and other things as well, and that's hearsay. But the Downtown Residents Association have adopted CoolKit. So, I mean, we're leaders here. And one thing that I found too is that not only, say, in different neighborhoods such as ours, are we actually doing things on the ground, such as we're planting trees and pollinator gardens, is engagement is surprisingly happening much more than I expected. So it's not, I mean, first of all, people in my neighborhood, as an example, are learning more about climate change, and they're probably telling other people about climate change. I run into people on the street, we talk about trees, and I don't try to be pushy, but I just say, hey, did you hear about climate change? We've had a lot of media coverage. That got into Canadian press, so that spread right across Canada. So again, Oak Bay is leading here. And also, through getting the climate champion leaders together, we now have kind of an ad hoc climate change group. And it's not political, you won't see them coming to council, but we get together and this is a larger group. Also, another unexpected thing that happened is now we're having CoolKit information sessions, which totally isn't part of what was planned in my group, and I think with other groups. This isn't just a 2-year program. We will continue doing more things in the manual in the future. So if we could have support, that would be great.
Ms. Careless?
Thank you.
Sorry, that's a
I
great
will
place
stop.
maybe to,
That's a good place to stop.
it is a good place to
I
stop.
didn't have something to read, so I didn't time it.
No,
Thank
that's
you very
fine,
much.
But you're welcome. Thank you very much for coming. Is there anyone else in the chamber or online who wishes to speak tonight? It's a wonderful 3-minute opportunity to tell us how you see the community and any new initiatives and so on. Riley, is there anyone else, or Christina, anyone else online that appears? No? Okay, thank you. I'll ask one more time, is there anyone else that would like to speak to council tonight? Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on then to reports and memorandums. And this is ironically, the Oak Bay CoolKit program. And we heard a very good overview of that program from Ms. Careless. This is the Year 1 evaluation report. And Mr. Meikle, I'm going to turn this right over to you. So thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Stephen Shepard, who will present the Year 1 evaluation, and certainly has more expertise in this area than I do. So Dr. Stephen Shepard is a professor in forest research management at UBC. He teaches in landscape and climate change planning. He He's the director of UBC's Urban Forestry Program and the Collaborative for Advanced Landscape Planning. This is an interdisciplinary group that works with communities, as they're doing here in Oak Bay, to develop climate change and energy solutions. Some of Dr. Shepherd's research includes engaging citizens in low carbon and resiliency models within communities and renewable energy planning. So Dr. Shepherd leads the UBC Research Cluster of Excellence on cool tools, utilizing social mobilization, using digital tools. I understand there's even some video games involved in some of that, and creating some greater awareness in the younger generation. So I'm honored, and it's a privilege to have Dr. Shepherd work with us on this project, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Shepherd, who's online. Thank you.
Okay. May I proceed? Can everybody hear me okay?
Could you speak up just a little bit, please? Thank you.
Thank you. And we might bring up the slides if someone could do that. And I'm happy to provide a very brief summary of what's in the report. Acknowledge the previous comments, and some of those we will hopefully address briefly. So if everyone can see this, then we'll begin, and there are a few animations, so whoever's clicking, I'll just say next, and hopefully we can run through this and take any questions in a few minutes. So next slide, please. What I would like to just touch on today is a quick recap of the Oak Bay Cool Kit program in year one, which was roughly 2022, but it slopped over into 2023, and it actually started during COVID, but obviously went on hold. Talk mostly about year one accomplishments because there were so many, we don't have time for them all, and cohort one, as well as year two, what's happening now, and challenges and takeaways. And next, please. So as you may recall, and many of the people in the room today, including obviously the council, have been a key part of this, and endorsed this program way back when it was originally begun. Obviously, the goals were to engage residents on the climate emergency, build awareness, hopefully behavior change, and really a drive towards local collective action, as well as policy support and broader things like behavior and culture change. And the idea was to make climate action much more visible on both private and public land, and to help, as we've just discussed, climate-proof neighborhoods and while cutting carbon footprints. And of course, there has been the district and the council for a 3-year program, which is took quite a bit of investment to customize the Cool Kit, train district staff. We had an initial workshop, as you may recall, with staff from various departments. And then, of course, to engage neighborhoods initially and produce a year one report, which you now have in front of you and which is now available to the public. And obviously, we have 2 more years, which we're already well into year 2 now. So I want to give you an update on that and talk a little bit about some of the ongoing support and guidance that is hoped for in the future, because as I think Andrea just mentioned, this is kind of a lifelong, community-long effort, unfortunately, with climate change getting worse all the time. Next, please. And again, I don't think I need to remind council about this, but we did want to make sure that the Cool Kit program was generally aligned with the policies from the regional district, the district itself, particularly the tree canopy cover issues, leadership issues like the banning of fossil fuel garden equipment, and other priorities, many of which came from the Oak Bay Climate Community Action Working Group recommendations, one of which included, thankfully, education and public participation using the Cool Kit, and we'll refer to some of the big moves which really have come from those recommendations. Next, please. And you may recall there were a series of 3 workshops last year, which worked through all of these stages in the Coolkit. It's a 5-step process, and we did various exercises like climate walks, mapping, visioning, canopy mapping, sort of in a very simple, fun way, and working on climate action plans that ultimately end up with tracking people's footprints and developing these collective action plans, as has been mentioned. Next slide, please. And these did lead through these brainstorming workshops with the various groups and individuals, champions, to developing climate action plans. And we now have something like 11 or 12 of these now that have been developed in cohort 1 across Oak Bay. And next slide, please. And this is, if you like, some of the results. And you can see a map there, and I'll refer to that in a second, a map of Oak Bay, and where the locations were where these neighborhoods were active, and the individual champions too. We had, I think, 46 people register. We've had attendance at the 3 workshops of between 34 and 40 champions. And what we found with that uptake was a lot of enthusiasm and also a lot of expertise brought to the table by people who are good at organizing actions and collective actions in related or other areas in Oak Bay, and a very proactive group they were, as you'll see in a second if you haven't already seen that in practice. And that cohort, that first cohort, really sort of consolidated into 8 collective action groups, mostly in blocks or micro neighborhoods of several blocks, 2 apartment buildings, and then we had 4 other individual champions also located on those maps, who are doing individual projects on different blocks. So that geographic spread, we estimate, is roughly somewhere around 10, maybe as high as 12 or 15% of the Oak Bay blocks actually represented in the Coolkit groups. So we got a pretty good geographic spread. Yes, the uplands area and the northern parts of Henderson, not that well represented yet, but that's something we're seeking to change in year 2. And of course, there is a lower population up there. But just to give you some idea of the scale, in the Dalhousie group, for example, there were, I think, at least three blocks represented. In Harling Point, something like 110 homes engaged. So you can see these are starting to spread, quite significantly into, other areas. And we had, I think the B Street group had something like 100 people, nearly 100 people show up to their events. So yes, we include the choir. We've got some real advocates and climate champions already in some cases, but they also brought in neighbors, family members, friends, associates, and other members of the public. And that's really what we're looking for, is to spread this message. Incidentally, the folks who did send in their carbon footprint calculations had a pretty low carbon footprint, but I suspect those were the greenest of the green. The average in Saanich, for example, using the same calculator that we used, is more like 6 or 7 tons of CO2. That's probably more representative of what Oak Bay is. But there was also quite a bit of community capacity built through that process. There was a network of trained Coolkit champions that have arrived or been trained in Oak Bay. Not arrived, they were there already. And we've had great support from the Neighborhood Association and a whole number of people that are already volunteers working in the community. And they bring in, through their engagement, some really new insights, new information about what other people are thinking about climate change and what kind of words to use and what words not to use when you're talking about climate change. Okay, next slide, please. So this is trying to get onto one slide, an awful lot of stuff that has already been achieved. The climate action plans, we analyzed them all, and obviously they represent quite a wide range of adaptation and mitigation solutions. They're pretty well aligned actually with the district's policies, the 5 big moves, which you can see in the green box there, which is what we distilled out of the recommendations from the district committees on various climate actions that would appeal to local residents, but also actually deliver resilience and reduce footprints. And you can see some examples of that, obviously tree planting, meadowscapes, traffic calming proposals, white roofs, different energy solutions at the local scale, food, etc. But one of the things that I think really impressed us at CALP and Eliza and Sarah and myself, who were the sort of the key part of the team from UBC, working closely with Chris, who, by the way, has, greased the skids on all of this and made an incredible amount of stuff happen, is that there was a lot of creativity in how to bring in other people. And these are just a few of the ideas that were played out. Michelle mentioned the block parties, which have been very successful. The B Street group did ice cream social. There was a block watch meeting, or a strata council meetings. There's a Falcons proposal for intriguing to plant more trees, etc. Just a lot of creativity and in the spirit of fun on very serious actions. And as we know, some of these obviously require both public and private land initiatives, hopefully in sync. That can be tricky, we know that, but it includes things like free trees and greening and depaving streets, and I think there's a renewed interest in the complete streets idea, which Oak Bay already did some pioneering on earlier, as I understand. But there's also the issue of the public stewarding the the members of the public stewarding the public trees in the public rights of way. And that's really a big deal when we come to droughts and management and looking after those things. That green infrastructure requires a public-private collaboration. Many other examples of collaborative achievements. Chris has estimated as 50 Coolkit trees planted so far. Again, we're now sort of only a few months out of the workshops really last year. So we've had decisions and plans being developed by these co-housing areas. There's this Facebook site that Andrea and others have been have showed a lot of leadership in, that's being used. The monthly meetings Chris organizes, which have been quite well attended and very informative. And so these things have bubbled up. So not all of these, not like UBC saying, oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z. Certainly we provide a lot of guidance. And I think branding the Coolkit has been, but a lot of these ideas are from the bottom. And that's kind of what you want if they're in sync with what staff and policies and businesses and others are doing. And there's also a neighborhood signage program underway, which will help make this visible. So I'm going to try and wrap up one more slide, I think, or maybe two, just to, if you can go to the next slide. Just a reminder of the rollout. I think you know all of that, but part of it obviously was the celebration event after the workshops when they'd been actively working. A lot of those public engagement planning meetings happened within a couple of months of the final workshop. So just a lot of activity leading to, people planting trees, people making changes in their own private land, in developing these larger plans, engaging so many people. And that's planting trees in, I think that might be Estevan, but I'm not sure. Chris can remind me. So we're starting to see real change happen on the ground, and second cohort, we're trying to kickstart that now with the initial workshop. I'll mention that in a second, and hopefully another round of this kind of activity as the Coolkit program spreads. Next slide, please. So some of those plans specifically are to bring in more of the youth. We would have liked to have seen a bit more youth engagement in year one. So there's been a lot of discussions with schools and the Girl Guide group that is actually looking at a pollinator project and things like that. And we are having this champion training workshop on the 17th of June, which we'd love people to come to, because that's where we're going to reinforce the buzz around the new program. And I'll skip, I think, quickly to, obviously we have to work out how to reward and incentivize that. And one of the challenges I think we will always face, and all such programs will face, is how do we scale this, keep scaling this up, keep up the momentum? How can we bring in more supporters, more community hubs, more local businesses, maybe, and try and integrate that, maybe faith groups, into this ongoing sort of community-wide effort? That will be the challenge. And it does require, as I think all governments at all scales are doing now, integrating climate change fully into basically all their major projects, certainly capital projects, planning programs, OCP, things like that, obviously. And things like grants programs, building and increasing staff capacity using training programs like the one that we put on at UBC. Quick plug for UBC there. But these things are starting to grow, and many other communities are starting to do the same thing. And I think you'll see, if you go to the last slide, I think one of the main takeaways is there are a lot of good news stories here, and Oak Bay is out in front. This is groundbreaking stuff to take it this far, this fast, and be in a sustained program. Even a 3-year program is quite unusual for that to be funded and supported. We're halfway through. We're learning a lot. There are definitely going to be frictions and tricky things to resolve as these things get pulled into sync. But the bigger picture is there are just many good news stories at all levels. Much has been accomplished. Oak Bay is already scaling up. But as Chris has said many times, he's a big advocate for planting trees, but it's more than just planting trees. That's one of the good and easy and vital ways to do climate action and bring people into the discussion. But it has to be broader than that. We have to be able to go deeper into active transportation and green infrastructure systems and energy and heat pumps, things like that. So as we broaden and deepen this, the kind of interest and support the council is showing and has shown, consistently, showing up to workshops and celebration events and these kind of council meetings and discussions is really important. I want to thank you really for getting this going, supporting this, continuing to support it. When the public sees that kind of visible support, it's a major motivator for people to keep going and bring people in. So again, I just want to say thank you for the time. I hope I didn't go too far over, and I'd be happy to take any questions from here on out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Shepherd. And really, this has been a shared leadership program, I think, right from the community. It has been a terrific project, and you're right, it does take a commitment from election cycle to election cycle, so it hopefully will become a permanent legacy, I think. That would be my hope. Are there any questions or comments from Council? Councillor Patterson, and then Councillor Smart, Councillor Appleton, and Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mayor, Acting Mayor. And thank you for the presentation, Dr. Shepherd, quite interesting, and thank you for the speakers that came and spoke about their experience with the program. Just wondering, with all of the people that you've communicated with in the workshops that were held, and some gathering of all, and then some smaller gatherings, I guess, were you able to ascertain the level of knowledge, kind of basic level of knowledge of people that participated in the program about the impacts of climate change on our future, and willingness or support for making greater changes to personal lifestyles that are going to be necessary to really get enough momentum to make significant changes and strides forward with climate change?
That's a very, very pertinent question. Thank you for asking it. We did do some surveys of the champions, and as I say, we've heard anecdotally about what some of the responses have been from those champions when they went out to sort of seek broader input, and feverishly looking for my summary of the results. There was a strong indication. We did a sort of a pre-post survey, and as part of that, we sort of found, well, two things, I think. One, that we had quite a variety of people in the group. So there were people with a lot of knowledge and a lot of personal commitment. You know, they're sort of the green keeners, as we would typically call them, and thank heavens for them, because they can spread that knowledge much more widely. And then others who had a more moderate level of interest. Obviously, there was a lot of interest. They wouldn't have shown up. The questions I think you were asking specifically were, what was their knowledge about impacts of climate change and their willingness to change personal lifestyles? And again, I think it's somewhat variable, but one of the things that COVID did for us was delay the program until the heat dome happened. And I'm not saying that's a good thing in either case, but the heat dome, I think, made a bigger difference. And we've seen this not just in Oak Bay, in terms of people's understanding of what the real risks are going to start to look like. And it made it much easier to take these messages. But I think one of the things that people tend to find going through the Cool Kit process is they've thought about certain aspects. So maybe heat went way up on the register, and people did know about fires a fair bit. And of course, we had the floods in the Fraser. Those all helped elevate those things. But there's a whole other side of it about building more broader resilience and cutting carbon footprints. And that's where a structured program like this is really important. And so I think some people did know about what was necessary to cut their footprints. Others perhaps didn't. And I think it's a bit like a ripple effect, Councillor. I think, you know, we're getting the choir, we're getting the people around the choir, we're getting more people, it's spreading, but there are many out there who are not ready to hear about vulnerability. That's not a word they want to see used about their neighborhood. They don't actually want to think about that. That's on the resilience side. And I think the behavioral change is the toughest one on carbon reduction, because it means plane flights, fewer plane flights, different vehicles, getting out of cars altogether. And the more these things can be connected and joined up, I think gradually we're going to see that transition. I wish I had a clearer, sharper answer for you, but you put your finger on some of the key points. But we're certainly seeing a lot of movement.
Thank you. Councillor Smart? Councillor Patterson, do you have any other? Oh, Councillor Smart?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Dr. Shipper, thank you so much for the presentation. I have been, as you know, quite involved in the program, so I don't have a lot of questions for you. I did want to thank also the speakers for coming tonight and setting aside some time from their evening. I did have just a couple questions for staff, just related to the presentation. With the I know that staff has been busy preparing a report to come back to council with a potential grant program to consider that would help take some of these great ideas potentially into fruition. And I wonder, does staff need any additional direction from council at this time to prepare that report? I guess that might be for Mr. Meikle.
Mr. Meikle?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Smart. Thank you. I really appreciate the check-in there. As my understanding, we're working together with the planning department and with Director Bowl to determine what existing grant programs may be able to be applied to the Cool Kit program. Is there sort of those already existing fits out there, and or are we looking at the creation of something different? So in progress, I guess is the best answer I can provide.
That's great. That's really helpful. Thank you. And what I've been hearing too from a lot of the champions is just, I think, wanting to know, the most efficient way of communicating some of these great ideas that doesn't take up a lot of staff time. So there might even be projects that don't have any cost associated with them, but just to figure out, I guess, what is that communication direction. The other question I had was just with regards to the timeline for the Dalhousie work, and should at a future time council want to pursue the consideration of that project. I just wondered what the timeline for the Dalhousie work was, and can it wait till we get this Cool Kit report back?
That would be a question for engineering, but Mr. Coates, do you have any comment? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So I can remind council that on February 13th, the contract was awarded on February 13th. So I don't have a status update on where that is, but you might recall that the detailed designs that went to tender the second time, it went to tender the first time and the bids came in extremely high, so went to tender a second time and council awarded that $3 million contract. So the notice to proceed has been given with that. So in terms of making adjustments to that, I think that my recollection of the information that that was sort of pulled together at the time prior to the award around the notion of enhanced project scope in relation to part of that, because you might remember that part of the project involved new curb, gutter, and sidewalk in one section, and the other part of it, and I won't bother trying to remember which block was which, but the other part of it was a sewer line essentially down the center of the road, so there wasn't intended to be much disturbance in relation to that particular scope of work. So that is what council approved to go to tender. I think if staff from engineering were here, they might be inclined to suggest that to sort of change up on that now would be, I think that the train is partway down the track in terms of the work. So I think that a lot of decisions have been made by the contractor and certainly by the district in relation to the scope there. So I'm not aware of the ability to make a change to that at this point. And I know that there was some discussion around the notion of, in that section, the ability to add a few more trees that perhaps wasn't essentially close to meeting the mark in terms of what the folks in the neighborhood were really more interested in. So it's a bit of the circumstances are what they are, and that's where it is now. And I'm not sure, pardon me, where it would go from here, but I think the ability is quite limited at this time to do something different based on the contract award.
Thank you, Mr. Coates. Councillor Smart?
I appreciate that summary, and my recollection from that meeting was that the area that the Cool Kit project was in was not where they were tearing up the road, but just a trench. And so my understanding was that there wasn't really any perceived cost savings in pursuing that project in conjunction with that, but that it was still, there was discussion at that meeting about it could be added on as a change order, or could be considered at a later date, but it wouldn't impact that contract. So I guess maybe what if council wants to consider that at a later date, it sounds like some direction might be needed to go back to engineering. And I guess I'm just not sure what the timelines are. So I will sit.
Mr. Coates?
Sure, I could just to follow up on that, and I think that Councillor Smart hit the nail on the head in terms of the accuracy of that as well. That thanks for filling in the gaps from my remarks on that. But yeah, so if council wanted to put a new project together on Dalhousie that included that kind of scope of work, that would be a new project, and that would, at this point, I think, again, without staff from engineering here, I don't know where something like that sits on their operational priorities, or if it's even listed. But if council wanted to give some direction to staff on that at some point, that would be certainly within your purview.
Thank you. Smart? And then I'll move on to.
Definitely. I don't mean to take up all the time. My other question was just because it did come up tonight with regards to the complete streets policy. And I do recall potentially at that same meeting in February that council had inquired as to sort of what the current status was of the complete streets policy, and engineering was going to go away and get back to us. And we haven't heard back from that. And I didn't know if there were any updates as to operationally how engineering and parks were potentially directed to deal with the complete streets policy, or if again that required direction from council.
Mr. Coates?
Thanks, and I'll wing it. And so I appreciate the test of my operational memory, and I'm a bit out of scope tonight. So, but I have been involved enough to be dangerous in terms of the conversations around this. So I know that there is a basic complete streets policy that was established, and that the intention behind that was that was sort of an initial cut through that, and that it needed, in order to be operationalized, it needed a lot more details around what a particular standard would be across the board. So it was conceptual from memory, and lacked the standards in place to sort of determine or dictate what the construction might look like. So once again, and I apologize that I don't have an updated piece of information on where that one sits in relation to the engineering piece of it, and we don't have staff with us tonight on that front. We can certainly circle back on that.
Thanks very much. And I think now we have 2 items on our radar that need to be brought back, and perhaps one for more direction, and then one to further see how we can operationalize something. So I'm sure everyone has made notes, and I will move on to Councillor Appleton and then Councillor Watson.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Green. Through you, I guess I'm going to direct a question to Dr. Shepherd. Thank you very much for the presentation, Dr. Shepherd. I guess the question that I would ask is, what has been crunchy? What has not worked? What barriers have you identified? And often you can learn just as much, if not more, from what doesn't work out from what does work out. So I'm just wondering, with this amount of experience under our collective belts, what was envisioned with rollout of CoolKit in Oak Bay that has proven to not be exactly as anticipated, and how might you have modified things if as you've learned as we've been going along?
Yeah, yes, thank you very much, Councillor Appleton. I appreciate that question. There are a few sort of pointers and suggestions and recommendations in the report. To answer your question directly, I think we were perhaps slightly surprised not to get more of a youth group. So one aspect of the question is who did we reach and who did we not reach? And because there has been a lot of discussion and a lot of interest, frankly, from various schools, both elementary and secondary, but for reasons I'm not fully sure of, but it doesn't seem to be a major strong pattern here. I think it's more circumstantial. No major youth groups materialize in the registration and the reach out for years. We didn't get teachers enrolling as teachers, or with the idea that they would bring a group. Or we did get a few youth individuals who showed up, but mostly as part of a neighborhood group or a family, that kind of thing. So it's not like we didn't have any, but we didn't have sort of an organizational youth group. And so what we're trying to do to sort of, as one of the reasons in year 2 with the recruitment, we're not just doing a sort of the blanket, put out the information and do a register and see who applies. We've been doing more targeted engagement, and Chris and staff and ourselves and some of the community members in the original cohort have been working with various people at schools. I know Sandy in Falkland has been talking to schools in her neighborhood, for example. So we're hoping, and also obviously Margaret has been working with the Girl Guide Group, and that's probably our shining example right now, because they're basically already working on a new Cool Kit program, or at least a program that they wish to link and brand as a Cool Kit program at the pollinators near the fire hall. So we're taking a different approach. Maybe it's more personalized, more targeted. We were pleased with the uptake we did get, but as I say, it left some people out. So we think a different approach. And some of this is just hard work on the ground. Scheduling can be an issue with the schools, for example. You know, in summer when we do late spring and summer the workshop, really hard times to get teachers and families and kids out. So that's just one example. One of the other things that we thought we might get, which we didn't get, was that as these neighborhood groups emerged, which they did very nicely, we thought they might be associated with sort of local community hubs. Could have been a school, it could have been a church, could have been a local business, or just a sort of a drop-in center or something, you know, around a community center or something like that. And that really didn't happen. So we've had terrific support from the Neighborhood Association, but some of these other small groups didn't get the call or weren't as deeply connected with some of the neighborhoods that came forward. And so I think that's a work in progress. And I think that's something we need to give more thought to. I'm not sure we have an easy solution for that. Again, I think it has to do with more staff time, because I would remind council that UBC has sort of dropped back in year 2 as per the original plan and budget to coordinating and supporting and occasional co-facilitation, but we're not sort of driving the bus in quite perhaps the way we were in year 1. And so it makes it more of a staff capacity issue. And again, Chris has done a yeoman's job, but there's a limit to how much time you can spend on these individual groups. So I think we're looking to build a sort of a richer network of sort of champions of the champions who can do that. And we're seeing some of that for sure with the social media approaches. And Andrea Kellis mentioned a couple of those, the Climate Force, for example, and regional groups who are very interested. And that is definitely happening. And one of the things I did forget to mention, and this is probably a success rather than a crunchy crunchy item, but there has been a lot of interest for the National ICLEI conference in Victoria. We've seen sort of spin-off programs in Victoria that Andrea mentioned, and that's partly through Andrea spreading the word, I suspect. We are promoting this through conferences. We've seen interest in other provinces. So there's an audience out there in many different communities, and they're very interested in learning exactly what works and what doesn't work. And that's why the evaluation report is so important. It would be good to continue that process and get these learnings out there in a clearer way for others to build on. There's probably more I could say, but I feel like I'm taking up much too much of your time. So I hope that at least begins to address some of those issues. Those are certainly some of the ones that we thought would be tricky. I think the third one is the obvious one of how do we integrate the community sort of based ideas with the ongoing planning and engineering and construction programs. And that's partly a timing issue. It's partly, how far back, when did the climate change start being woven more directly into the plans? And as I say, some of that is things are going to get out of step sometimes, and that's probably unavoidable. And I think one of the things that the program needs to do well is help explain that. So that people's expectations are in line with what some of those realities are. Not that those realities can't be shifted or changed or reprioritized, but it's a sort of a push-pull situation, and we're going to see that in every community. They're all dealing with it now, one way or another. And so I think that's something that we all probably can take away from this to rethink a little bit how we do it.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Appleton?
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor Green. Just one other thing. Thank you very much, Dr. Shepherd. One other quick question following on a question one of my colleagues asked. I'm very interested, as Councillor Smart referenced, there is a grant program that was sort of intended from the beginning to sort of key in with delivering on Community Climate Action Work Group recommendations, and there's a clear key in here with the community initiatives that the Cool Kit identifies. So we've heard sort of about the logistics of figuring out how that rolls out. I guess from your perspective, whether you could comment on what should the district understand and what should we be aware of as that grant program crystallizes? What are sort of some of the key things that we should know as that program rolls out to the community? What things should we consider as far as its design, given what you've heard from the community groups that you've been working with?
Yes, that's a difficult question to answer, but a very important one. Again, thank you for asking that. I think there are a variety of mechanisms of grants that might be appropriate. So we've seen success in other municipalities with these sort of small seed grants, very small, sometimes like $500. To do a block party, or and you probably have some programs that are similar to that already. Many municipalities too, and those kinds of things are certainly helpful. They can get the wheels rolling, and so spreading relatively small amounts of money to key groups that have expressed enthusiasm and some level of organization, that they can actually build on what that small amount of money provides, I think is a good thing, and it just needs to be branded and labeled as climate change related. And so I think that's one part of a grant portfolio. And we've heard, a Green Block program had this in Vancouver about 3 years ago, and even small grants got some amazing things going with the right core people who can take that and engage a few more people, or buy some materials, or buy some trees, or whatever it is. It can actually go a long way and have a legacy, but it's definitely not enough. And I think the bigger message is a tougher one, and that is, what is the long-term support mechanism for these sort of mixed groups, collaborative groups, working with staff, working with other property owners, and so things like business improvement districts that are often done on for aesthetics, or to improve access and improve visibility of signs or commercial opportunities. Can they be tied into the climate change things? And sometimes these are significantly more money and some capital budgets attached to that, and some of it might be public-private funded. Can we get win-wins, between the climate benefits, climate action benefits, and commercial benefits, or health and affluence? Not affluence, but I mean, property enhancement kind of.
Thank you, Dr. Shepherd.
Those kinds of things. I think it's thinking outside the box a little bit to connect those things. But I think the long term is will there be some kind of longer term rolling fund that can be supported in years 3, 4, 5, 6, and maybe it's also hiring interns to support the staff during the summer, things like that. That would expand the capacity to keep the thing rolling.
Thanks, Councillor Appleton. I'll move on to Councillor Watson.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor. And just a comment first, and then it's probably going to be a question for Dr. Shepherd, but maybe also for Mr. Meikle. It's a perfect, just following on your thinking ahead about the longevity of this program, and it's a great place for me to start my comments, because I would start by saying that of those around the council table tonight, I'm the one who's been kind of has the least background on this initiative. I wasn't on council when it came forward and was funded, and you came on board with your team. So I'm learning things, and certainly learning by reading the report that was before us tonight. So thank you for that. And I would observe that there's certainly been lots of activity and engagement in the last year and a half. Some very concrete steps and plans made, and some initial evidence of behavioral change. But what I don't really understand in what's presented here is how the activities and outputs themselves are being measured as they reflect the particular outcomes, both short, medium, and long term, that are identified. And I know in the staff report there is a reference to a governance review document, and I'm just trying to understand what the sort of logic model is of our support for this program, and how we would know 3 years from now how we are advancing towards those outcomes. And there are certainly some things that seem to being measured, but I don't know how that fits into a really organized structure that would allow council to say at some point in the future, oh yes, this is what these were the activities, and the outputs we said we were going to achieve. This was our base data. These are how these were, how the data, what the measurables tell us about what has happened in these intervening periods of time. So I guess my question is that covered in the governance review document? And if there is kind of a logic model, perhaps you could speak just a little bit about that. And if not, is that something that could be developed or added, so that we just have a really clearer understanding of what all this wonderful activity and investment is actually bringing about in a way that's understandable and reportable? So that's my kind of analytic mind asking those questions. And so maybe over to you, maybe first, Dr. Shepherd, if you could.
Yes, thank you. And that's a very timely question. So my understanding of the governance report and the contract that was signed with UBC was that we were committed, obviously, to a year one evaluation report, and that thereafter, it's really, let's say, we're in more sort of guidance and overview, and I think we could play part of that role within our scope, but I do not believe that we have the scope to actually produce a second evaluation report, which is one way to track that. I'm not sure that's the only way to track it, partly because we really weren't sure where and how this would go, and at what point we would accumulate enough data. I think these are really important points, and they should be on the agenda for deciding how to do it. And I think it's tied partly to where does the data sit, and where does the and the ability to capture and store and analyze, where does that sit? And long term, the whole idea about this was to sort of phase the university out, and for this to be self-sustaining within the community. That's kind of the gold standard, which many communities haven't yet been able to sustain. Some nice exceptions. But I think that's exactly. I think that's a really key point. I think some of the mechanisms would be reasonably clear. Annual surveys, both quantitative and qualitative, but qualitative means more time for people to analyze and lead focus groups or those kinds of things. And also different ways that these could be tracked over time. So what we did the mapping, to produce these initial maps of the neighborhoods and the groups, and a table that lists, which actions are happening in which group, in which area. But it would be really nice to see that sort of migrated into the district's GIS data set. But then again, someone has to collect that information or transfer the existing information as a baseline and then come back to it. So all of these things are doable, but they take time and effort and often money. And sometimes some of this can be done through the volunteers. And I think that's something perhaps, you know, and we would be happy to give that some further thought as part of our sort of overview and guidance role, as to how that might work. So for example, City of Victoria has a mapping and open access, you know, citizen science kind of map your own, you know, map the trees you plant kind of thing, because many municipalities do not have detailed maps of the trees that are planted on private land. And that's a huge problem across Canada. But there are these mechanisms to fill in some of those holes, and the more that people can be incentivized to provide that data in a form that can be readily analyzed, the easier it is to track. Because I think it would be a shame. I completely agree with the point in the question, that it'd be a shame not to be able to track it. One of the other ways that it's usually done is with the carbon dioxide calculator, and that actually was a bit of a disappointment, because we didn't get as many people doing that as we would have liked. And when you got 3 tons per annum, it's pretty hard to cut that in half. So it's going to be hard to measure those reductions, because those are the greenest ones. So that's an effort that probably should be renewed and repeated. So those are some of the methods, I think, of establishing those benchmarks that you can track over time.
Thank you, Dr. Shepherd. Councillor Watson, anything else?
Yes, just to close that out, thank you for reflecting on that. I think what I am hearing is that there probably is, it would be worthwhile to actually have some really clear indicators that we establish as a municipality, and that the Cool Kit plays into in terms of how its activities and community engagement and change in behavior actually feed change in those indicators. So I'll look for an opportunity maybe to bring that to council for a discussion around how we do that. So thank you very much, Dr. Shepherd.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Are there any other comments or questions before we move on to what we have before us, which is a recommendation? I will just make very quick comments. I think the materials we've been presented tonight are incredibly useful and comprehensive. I hope that the evaluation, both the evaluation and Dr. Shepherd's presentation, can be made available to the public through the website. I think that would be really important. They are very informative documents. And I would also like to acknowledge the support of the people here tonight who've come to speak, but also our staff, Chris Hidley, Manager Chris Hidley of Parks, and Steve Meikle and others who have really supported this program actively, proactively throughout the community. And I think we all owe them a debt of gratitude for that. And Dr. Shepherd, thank you so much for being with us tonight. So I will move, if there are no other comments or questions, I will move to, we have a recommendation before us. And I would be looking for a motion, please.
I'll move receipt of the report.
Thank you. So Councillor Patterson moved, Councillor Appleton, seconded. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments before we vote? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. On a related matter in some ways, we're moving to beekeeping opportunities. And we have Mr. Green tonight from Planning and Building and Planning. I'm never sure which comes first. I think planning comes first. And I'll turn this over to you. Thank you for being here.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. The report before you is a response to council's notice of motion that council passed on January 23rd, which was essentially to bring back a project backgrounder, identifying the resource implications and timing considerations of amending the zoning bylaw. However, when essentially when I started to look at this, I felt it was probably easier and less resources needed in terms of actually bringing a report back with a potential draft amendment for Council's consideration that Council could review and then direct us to bring that bylaw back for second or third reading. And so the report before you essentially clarifies what there's options for council, but essentially has a draft bylaw attached that hasn't got a bylaw number, but essentially sort of starts to look at what that text amendment bylaw may look like, both to the district's zoning bylaw as well as to the district's animal control bylaw. Happy to answer any questions on the report.
Thank you, Mr. Green. So I'll go to council now. Are there any questions or comments on the report? Councillor Smart?
Yes, through you, Mayor. I had a question to staff just with regards to, it seems that the current policy does not allow for beehives on roofs. Is that correct? Am I interpreting that properly?
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. When you delve into, I think it's 4.18.10 of the district zoning bylaw. Yeah, when you interpret that section, that does preclude potentially a beehive being located on the rooftop. So if council was wanting to bring back that bylaw, we would address that as part of the formal bylaw amendment that we would bring back for council's consideration of first reading.
Councillor Watson?
If I could follow up on that question, I'm sorry, maybe my recall of the meeting at which we asked for this was that because the very specific request was for beehives on roofs in commercial zones. So are we talking about, I just want to clarify Councillor Smart's question. Was Councillor Smart asking about any roof, including roofs in commercial zones?
Smart?
Through you, Mayor. Yeah, my understanding, and I have limited knowledge in this, but from my architectural experience, is that often coordinating beehives for residential, the roof is often a preferential spot as well. So at very least, I think we need to make sure that if we're making this change, that for commercial projects, that we do allow them on roofs, because otherwise it really won't be very successful. But I would urge council to consider rooftop locations for all zones.
Mr. Green, do you have any comment on that issue and how we might procedurally manage this then? It seems like, I think I have Mr. Coates waving. Could you help us? Thank you.
Oh, certainly. So in terms of that specific direction, so council's got a few recommendations from staff in the report in front of you to consider, and a couple of draft bylaws that were sort of the basic version of that. And if staff can certainly, when those bylaws come back for council, staff could provide some policy options around the potential for rooftop placement of beehives, and so council could give us specific direction tonight in passing these recommendations to key on that, or we could simply just take it away and do that. But I think the direction might be more preferable, and I do have something I can put forward for council when the time comes, when you're dealing with the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coates, and thank you, Mr. Green, as well. That was my recollection too. I think the genesis of this on the commercial side was, I believe it was the Oak Bay Beach Hotel actually that was very specifically interested in installation of beehives. So this is how this sort of evolved. But I really appreciate the information in the report. Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and appreciate, Mr. Green, that you're bringing these forward. So just for clarity then, because this does come back to that one opportunity that we had to try something new here. So if council proceeds with the bylaw amendments that have been put before us for consideration, will it then allow us to expedite the process of moving that project forward And hopefully, if that is the case, is there any idea of the timeline by which we could get to the last step on this?
Yeah, I think if we receive that direction tonight as to where council wishes to go with that direction in terms of how permissive it wishes to be with allowing those beehives, then we can quite easily amend the draft bylaw that is attached to the staff report, have that bylaw reviewed by corporate services, and also if council gives notice of its intent to give first reading, then we can also potentially waive the public hearing, given that this bylaw will be in accordance with the OCP, so we could bring that bylaw back for council's consideration of first reading, and then potentially also second and third reading on the same evening, and then adoption at the subsequent meeting to when council gives third reading.
Thank you, Mr. Green. And Mr. Coates, just procedurally, I think I would like a little guidance. So we're going to move through each of these recommendations, and then you have another recommendation that we can vote on as well. Is that correct?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, and so that would just be the specific direction to staff, and I can put that forward when the time comes. But that would be specific direction to staff to provide some policy options for beehives on rooftops. And so essentially, I'm assuming that would mean whether that included all zones or specific zones, and that would be a policy consideration I think council would have on that one.
And from the nods around the table, I'm seeing that there is a consensus on allowing beehives in commercial areas, on commercial rooftops. Am I correct in that? Yes, thank you. Okay, well, shall we move on then? And thank you, Mr. Green, very much for the report and all of the recommendations. And if there are no other comments or questions, I'm suggesting that we go to the recommendations, beginning with the first one. Thank you. Councillor Appleton.
Madam Chair, I would move that the staff report be received.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously. On the second recommendation.
Acting Mayor, I would move further that Resolution 2023-084 requesting staff, et cetera, to the amendment, essentially that the project background or direction be rescinded, the first recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Watson, thank you. Are there any further comments or questions? Councillor Smart?
Apologies, I'm just trying to follow Councillor Appleton's recommendation. Are you on page 1 of the? I just want to make sure that I'm reading the correct motion.
We're on 7.1 and the second recommendation.
On can you which page of the agenda? Yep.
5.
Thank you.
And Your Worship, I'll just chime in and just note for council that I've got them displayed on the screen for you if you can see this as well, because that's where I'll add in the new one for you.
Thank you very much. Are there any further comments or questions? I'll call the question. Oh, Councillor Watson, sorry.
Yes, it's just a quick comment to staff. I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Green for taking the initiative to actually try and short circuit a process that would have taken longer. And it looks like we're going to be able to achieve things faster. So I just wanted to say that for myself and on behalf of council. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. So I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. And on the third recommendation.
Acting Mayor, I would move that council direct staff to bring forward a zoning bylaw amendment and animal control bylaw amendment to permit beekeeping in commercial zoned areas for the consideration of readings and adoption.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any further comments or questions? My only comment is that I find it odd that bees are classified as animals, but anyway, under the animal control bylaw. If there are no further comments or questions, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. And the fourth recommendation.
Acting Mayor, I would further move that council direct staff to give notice that it intends to give first reading.
Thank you. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. And now, Mr. Coates, thank you for your help.
And so I've got that on the screen for you now, and that is that staff be directed to report back to council with the draft bylaws with further policy options to prevent beehives on rooftops.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Councillor Patterson. Was it Councillor Patterson or Councillor Smart that seconded? Councillor Patterson. Thank you. Any further comments? And thank you, everybody, for your assistance. Mr. Coates and Mr. Green. No, hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. We are moving on now to bylaws and permits. And the first one is 8.1. And this is the Reserve Funds Bylaw Amendment, Bylaw number 4837, 2023. I believe Linda McCarran, the Deputy Director of Finance, is here tonight. And this is for adoption. Thank you. Ms. McCarran, did you wish to comment?
Hi there. Thank you, Acting Mayor. No, I'm just attending tonight in case there were any questions that I might be able to assist with. But I do believe there was an expectation that it would be straightforward.
Thank you very much for being here. So are there any comments or questions? We're really moving to adopt, but this is the last opportunity for a comment or question. Could I have a motion then, please?
Acting Mayor, I would move that council adopt Reserve Funds Bylaw number 4747, 2020, Amendment Bylaw number 4837, 2023.
Thank you. And the seconder? Councillor Watson, thank you. Are there any further comments or questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. And moving on to bylaws and permits, 2023 Parks, Recreation and Culture, PRC fees and charges. And thank you, Mr. Meikle, for being here. And I'll turn it over to you for the moment if you want to say anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to council. Just that annually we take a look at the fees and charges for admissions and essentially rentals and other equipment usage within the Parks, Recreation and Culture Department. So we're presenting the Parks, Recreation and Culture fees and charges amendment bylaw number 4838 for readings this evening. It's in the report there, but I'm certainly happy to outline some of the major amendments if council so wishes.
Thank you. What is the wish of council? Would you like Mr. Meikle to outline the major amendments? Yes, please, Mr. Meikle. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought I'd ask in lieu of time there. Thank you, Your Worship. So what we're essentially looking at, and just coming through budget deliberations, we are proposing a 4% increase to our admission fees and facility rentals within the existing bylaw. That'll be a kind of an approximation, though. We're probably plus or minus about 0.5% in there, given rounding of numbers to get, these are again fees and charges that are presented to the public, so trying to keep them as round numbers as possible. We haven't actually had an increase or done an increase in our admission fees for about a decade now, since about 2013. So given some of the inflationary pressures and other pressures on our budget coming out of COVID, the time is necessary, really. We also have elicited feedback from our patrons and made a few changes based on that. So some changes to our pass structures or pass options for patrons. We're moving from a 5-week pass to a 4-week or a 1-month pass, and moving from a 4-month pass to a 3-month pass. And generally, this just lines up with individual schedules, is the feedback we've received in terms of both vacation, work, school, etc. It's important to note in those past structures, we've maintained the same sort of per visit or per unit ratio, moving from 5 weeks to 4 weeks, just adding the 4% increase as proposed here. We've also, again, based on feedback from the public, done some clarifying of the age specifications for various pricing categories, and clarified our what's called the prime time or non-prime time for rentals in our facilities, and really the premise behind designating prime time versus non-prime time is essentially everybody really wants the prime time, so we're trying to incentivize folks to maximize use of the buildings, use of the facilities at those non-prime times with some cheaper, more affordable rates. We've also included in this to recognize the lifetime or 90 plus individuals and what we call our lifetime pass holders. So at 90 plus, decision from, I believe it was approximately 12 years ago, from the parks, the no longer standing Parks and Recreation Commission had provided that opportunity for 90 plus year olds to receive free access, unlimited lifetime access to the centers. And the last major change is an addition of a clause providing some authority for the director, Parks, Rec and Culture to negotiate fee changes for the benefit of the district. And this is similar to clauses found in the current Parks and Beaches bylaw. Provides opportunities for examples such as things like the Francophone Games or the BC 55 Plus Games. It gives us some ability to enter into negotiations for facility usage for major events and things, as well as some opportunities for partnership development. So for example, with Island Health, mental health and addictions, we have a group that regularly comes and attends our weight room twice a week and provides that opportunity to negotiate with them and ensure that those individuals get access. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meikle. Are there any further comments or questions? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Meikle, for this report. It's unfortunate the fees have not been escalated for quite some time, because I think it's easier to absorb small increases than large increases. But nevertheless, we're updating them now, and so I think that that's certainly appropriate. The one question I do have is about, I respect the need for delegating the authority for negotiating of the rental fees to the director to expedite the process, but I'm just wondering about the governance controls aspect of delegating the authority to a single individual, and what review or scrutiny is given to that after the fact.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Council. That's a good question. We haven't actually encountered that, and in my just a year now in this position, I haven't actually had to use that those clauses in the Parks and Beaches bylaw that exist there to date. My understanding of that would be that in any case, so we'll use the 55 plus games example. It often does come and land back at council either through the budget process or through a request from that group as part of the budget process. But what it would allow is that group to come forward and say, in discussions with the Director of Parks, Recreation and Culture, we're seeking use of X, Y, and Z facility for this amount or that amount, etc. So it does provide some opportunities, I think, in the preparation phase to be able to present those items. And most often those items will pass through the budget process. So the CAO and Director of Finance would certainly see those things.
Thank you, Mr. Meikle. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you very much, Acting Mayor. And through you, just a question too to Mr. Meikle. I'm curious in terms of fee setting. I know that you did go out and you have looked at what other Parks and Rec groups are doing across the region, and the proposal, at least when we're just looking at one particular price point, it seems comparable, but I just wondered in terms of the policy around that you're working with. It's a combination of, I see there's a need to generate a certain amount of revenue to offset costs, so there's some factor there, but there's also, I imagine, some desire to maintain some kind of parity across the region. If you could just speak to that, kind of how we act as a regional player. And I'm particularly curious in your answer because you have noted that you actually don't know what all these other jurisdictions are going to do between now and September. And I was just concerned that we might end up out of sync with the rest of them if they make fee moves, perhaps after also some time of not having a review, that would make us an outlier. And I just wondered if that happened, how we would rectify that. So I noted that in your report, and I just would ask that you comment on it, please. Thank you.
Thank you, through the mayor to Councillor Watson. That comment in the report is more just with respect to some of the other districts have not actually brought their fees and charges bylaws or policies forward to their councils or to their commissions or governing boards at this point. So we do have regular conversations as a regional group, and I am aware of what other groups are proposing in terms of increases. We're in the same ballpark. I can certainly provide that. Because our current fee structure, and one of the reasons we had not increased the fees in over a decade was back a decade ago, just after the 2010 Olympics, places generally capitalized on the popularity of sports and recreation after the Olympics, and fees did go up, and it also corresponded, I believe, if my memory serves, with the reversion between HST and GST, and some of that went back, and so prices changed a lot in that time frame, and we found ourselves at the very top of the market by quite a bit back a decade ago. So we held the line for a long time until others gradually crept up to where we were, and we're now probably in that 2/3 of the way up the chain, so to speak. So I would not foresee any major changes from others that would cause us to be an outlier. Certainly nobody in this time is going to go down in costs, unfortunately. So I would not see us as an outlier in that, but we're landing in the middle of the park now, where we had kind of first direction from council was originally.
Thank you, and that's really helpful. And just to follow up on that kind of on the same vein, in terms of all the definitions of the categories across the region, are they pretty much this, like a youth's a youth, a student's a student, an adult's an adult in that age range that you've specified? Do we kind of all line up that way too?
Thank you. There are some outliers there. We're not all quite on the same definitions. So where those probably the biggest discrepancies lie is in some of the youth age categories. Children, I think, is pretty standard across the board, just that 5 years and under. And then the other place where some discrepancy lies is in the older adults end of things. So there's been some work over time to, again, others coming down and others moving up to get us closer, and I think we'll continue down that road. My sense is there'll be some further alignment as others are bringing these kinds of presentations forward.
Thank you, Mr. Meikle. And Mr. Coates, you had something to add.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And so I think first of all, just sort of backing up one little bit to the new section 15 of the bylaw regarding the sort of the discretion of the Director of Parks and Recreation and Culture for negotiating fees. I know that was a provision that existed in the bylaw previously, and then it was removed, and that it was understood that was coming back in. But my further understanding, and I'll just get Mr. Meikle to jump in to make sure I'm accurate with this, but the fees proposed in the new bylaw don't take effect until September. And so, staff can certainly come back to council with a bit more wrapping around what the discretion of the Director of Parks and Recreation might look like, such as the circumstances under which that sort of authority might be exercised. Because I know Ms. Williams and I had a quick conversation about this. This report just happened when we were ships passing in the night. I'd been away for 10 days, and so I wasn't here for the conversations around that. So she did leave me a note on that we can certainly do that. And if council wish to proceed with the bylaw, give it 2 readings today, we can come back to council with a little policy conversation around how that discretion might be exercised if council's more comfortable with that.
Thank you, Mr. Coates. Thank you, Mr. Meikle. So are there any other, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. And just one question. It's not in here, but I will throw it out anyways. As Director Meikle said, he is in discussion with others around the region, and so I'm inquiring if there has been any discussion arising lately of the need to charge additional fees for parking for people that actually drive to the facilities, because many people don't. They cycle or they walk or they get there through public transportation, and the parking lots are beginning to become an increasingly expensive undertaking to support. And so I'm just wondering what the discussions are in Parks and Rec departments for where they see this going in the future.
Mr. Meikle?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to council. As far as I'm aware, there is maybe only the Y downtown Crystal Pool, I don't believe actually charges any longer. So I don't believe there's any public recreation centers in Greater Victoria that are charging for parking. One of the greater fears is that adds another cost to people to actually access the recreation center. And for some who will be there for 3 or 4 hours, can be a fairly sizable additional fee to their, could be even more than the actual drop-in fee to come to the recreation center. So I think it was just seen as another additional barrier for some folks. We also offer a program for low-income individuals called the LIFE program, and so we would need to work through some nuances to how that might look, but at this point there is no others that I'm aware of.
Thank you. Are there any further comments or questions before we move to first and second reading? All right. Thank you. So could I have a motion, please, on recommendation number 1?
Acting Mayor, I would move receipt of the staff report.
Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor Smart. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you. And now first and second reading. Thank you for the reminder.
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. I would move that Parks, Recreation, Culture fees and charges amendment bylaw number 483 to 2023 be read a first and second time.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Smart. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you. That's carried. And then moving on, Mr. Coates, do you have sort of a procedural guidance for the recommendation around the third reading? I think you said we would suspend that until later. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. So that's entirely at council's discretion. So because the fees don't get implemented until September, that if council wish to have some sort of policy wrapping around the discretion that would be established in that proposed bylaw amendment for the Director of Parks and Recreation to vary fees, staff are happy to bring that back to sort of give that sort of level of comfort around that. Alternatively, if council's comfortable with the discretion as it stands, council's free to give the bylaw third reading at this time, whatever council's preference is.
Thank you. Can I get an indication, the will of council tonight? Do you want to proceed with third reading? Councillor Watson?
I would be happy to proceed with third reading. I see this as, as the report is explained anyway, this is a limited authority to change fees. It's not an authority to change the whole schedule that we've looked at. It's fees in particular circumstances. And I think that allows the nimbleness of staff to go forward and do what they have to do, often in short turnaround time, in order to get folks fixed up for the spaces they need and the events they need. So I would not need this to come back.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watson. I saw heads nodding. Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. And I'm comfortable with this going to third reading tonight. I think that I felt that the question should be raised, but I think that the response and the then follow-up oversight through the financial review of records, I think that is sufficient to demonstrate adequate governance in this matter. So I'm happy to move third reading too.
Thank you. Any other comments? Then I'm looking for a motion for third reading, please. Councillor Watson?
I would be happy to, let me roll up, to move that Parks, Recreation and Culture Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw 4838, 2023 be read a third time.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Oh, sorry, Councillor Patterson. I'm assuming that we've said all we wanted to say. Mr. Meikle, thank you again. And all those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. Thank you so much. And so we will move now to 9.2, which is the Development Variance Permit DVP 001302072 Meadow Place. Mr. Muller, I believe, prepared this report, but Mr. Green is here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. This a development variance permit that is seeking to vary section 4.7 of the district's parking facilities bylaw. Council will recall that this application was first presented to Council on April the 23rd, where Council directs staff to give notice of its intent to issue a development variance permit. The applicant is here on the Zoom call, available for any questions that you may have, and also I'm also happy to answer any questions that Council may have on the application. Obviously, staff are recommending that Council issue this variance. Staff have no concerns with the proposal, and so staff are recommending that Council authorise the issuance of development variance permit DVP 00130.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. I'll move to Council. Any questions or comments? The owner is with us via online. Do we have any questions of the owner, or would the owner wish to add anything to the report that has been prepared?
No, it sounds pretty concise. My letter of rationale was the only thing I was going to add, and it's already in there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Alexander, for being here tonight. All right, I'm going to seek a motion then, please.
Move receipt of the staff report.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried.
And I will move that council authorize issuance of development permit DVP 00130 for the property located at 2072 Meadow Place.
Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Any further comments or questions? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Green, as well. Thanks again, Ms. Alexander. And before I move to new business, I just wanted to follow up on a couple of items that we talked about earlier in the agenda. One was the questionnaire that we talked about. The public questionnaire survey is open until July the 4th, 2023. Thank you, Mr. Coates, for getting that information. And I wanted to say, because I don't think I mentioned, that the barbecue on Thursday is on the front lawn of Municipal Hall. I don't know if I mentioned that. So I apologize. So the location is the front lawn, and it's from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. on Thursday. Thank you. Okay, we move on to new business. And this is Councillor Smart's new business item. Sorry, Councillor Smart, I'm just looking at my, oh, here it is. This is a motion by Councillor Smart to reconsider a resolution made earlier. And I'll turn this over to you, Councillor Smart. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a motion not to reconsider in principle the motion, and it's a bit of semantics, but I felt it was important to communicate to the public. So this is really around just the word recommendation. When I feel like what that's communicating to the public is that we wouldn't recommend electric patio heaters. And so my motion tonight is around rewording the original motion to say instead requirement for electric patio heaters when patio heaters are provided. And this is just to provide what I feel is more accurate wording to the public that we are very much in support of businesses that go above and beyond and have a more environmentally friendly alternatives. And I just felt that the word recommendation, that we were against a recommendation for this, just might be misunderstood.
Thank you. So just for the benefit of council and for the public, and I appreciate Mr. Coates' help with this earlier today. So the proposed amendment reads that council endorse the draft regulation and implementation plan of the sidewalk patio program and remove the requirement for electric patio heaters when patio heaters are provided. So I just wanted to make sure everyone understood what this is. And Councillor Smart has motivated us. So you're making the motion, and would you like to do that then? Oh, sorry, Director Coates.
Thank you, Your Worship. And so just for process clarity, so the first motion that council would want to put their minds to is the motion to reconsider that motion that was passed May the 8th.
And Councillor Smart would make that motion as well. Thank you, Councillor Smart.
I'd like to put forward a motion that council reconsider the council resolution 2023-256, that council endorse the draft regulation and implementation plan of the sidewalk patio program and remove the recommendation for electric patio heaters.
Is there a seconder for Councillor Smart's proposal? Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Acting Mayor. Just a point of verification, do we have the original, the original motion that came to council and was approved? Just for comparison?
Your Worship, just for clarity, so that's on the faceplate of the amended council agenda tonight, and it's also on the screen. And that motion was that council endorse the draft regulation and implementation plan of the sidewalk patio program and remove the recommendation for electric patio heaters. That is the motion that Councillor Smart has put forward to reconsider.
Councillor Patterson?
Yes, and my apologies, Acting Mayor. Unfortunately, it came late, and so I didn't have a chance to go back and review the original motion that council approved to look at the wording of that. Is that readily available, the original motion that was approved by council?
Your Worship, that's what's displayed, and that's what's on the agenda faceplate is the original motion.
It's attached, yeah. It's attached, Councillor Patterson, the original motion. So Councillor Smart has made a motion to reconsider, and we need a seconder at this point. Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. Just a procedural question. So basically the reconsideration is confined to the element of the debate which is presented here. So not that I think that it would veer off in any other direction, but we're talking specifically about a language component, not about, because the reconsideration will put the original motion back onto the floor for discussion. So not that I think we're going to discuss the whole motion again, but I'm wondering whether it's possible to, what I see here is that it's confined to a language amendment only, and that other things would be not in order then.
Director Coates, could you help us? Thank you.
So the minutes from May 8th showed the resolution approved by council. That's displayed before you, and Councillor Smart is exercising her prerogative under the council procedure bylaw to ask council to reconsider the motion. And the notion of that is there's no other way to change a council motion that's just been made unless it's reconsidered. There isn't any new information that's come forward. It's simply this is corrective in terms of Councillor Smart's view, and I'm not trying to take liberties with her thoughts on this, but the notion is that the motion that council passed on May the 8th doesn't suggest all by itself what the intent of the resolution was, and that the clarifying language doesn't change the outcome, but rather just change the way that it's conveyed.
Thank you. So it's essentially a semantical issue and clarity issue.
Your Worship, yes, that's correct.
Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Appleton. So we have a live motion now, and this is the motion to reconsider. Councillor Watson?
Yes, I do have a question for clarity now. The motion's on the floor. I'm wondering if what it is that's being, in effect, amended is not so much the motion, but what was in the draft regulation that was presented to us. Because I think I'm not quite clear. I think it was the draft regulation that was put together by staff that actually was going to require these heaters, in which case I would prefer that any motion to change that actually spoke to the very specific thing that was in front of us, which was the draft regulation. So that's just a comment about what we have in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Any other comments or questions? Well, hearing none, then I will call the question on the reconsideration. All those in favor? Any opposed? We have a tie.
So,
I will have to break the tie. No?
Your Worship, so a tie vote is defeating the motion to reconsider.
Oh, correct. That's right. Thank you. It's been a while. All right. So procedurally, can you help? Sorry, Director Coates. It's just it's a different situation. Thank you.
Your Worship, understand completely, and that's why, generally speaking, councils have an odd number of members so that there aren't ties. But in the event of a tie vote, the legislation is conclusive that the motion is defeated. So the motion to reconsider is defeated.
Thank you. Councillor Smart.
Are you abstaining from voting?
No, I'm not. But it is a tie vote, so it defeats the motion on the table. Correct?
Yeah, the motion is defeated. So,
Yes, okay.
So it's disposed of.
Okay.
Yeah.
And moving on, we have a notice of motion. Item number 11, University of Victoria lands at Cedar Hill Corner. Excuse me, and this was brought forward by the mayor. Mr. Coates, could you help us with this one? Could you speak to it? I don't think it requires any debate at this point.
And Your Worship, my apologies, is that typically we have a little phraseology in the agenda on these ones that when they're presented either to be debated or whether they're presented to be read into the record. This is the latter, so it's not for debate. It's to be presented for the record and be considered at the next council meeting.
Thank you. Could I have a motion then?
Your worship, you don't require a motion.
It
simply-
doesn't
it's
require a
simply
motion.
there.
Okay, it's just for information. Thank you. I think we've reached the end of the meeting. Thank you, everybody. And yes, Mr. Coates.
Sorry, Your Worship, in the melee, going back to the motion to reconsider, there's 5 members of council present, so there can't be a tie. My apologies, I was distracted. So everybody here has to vote. So, and not voting is voting in the affirmative. So, my apologies, there can't be a tie vote with 5 members present. So back to that issue, it's either going to be reconsidered or not. And so I apologize because I didn't pay attention when the votes were being cast for that, but everybody sitting at the table will be voting, and so it can't be a tie.
That's what I thought initially, but okay, thank you. And I appreciate the clarification. So how do we handle this now? We have to go back?
Sorry, so the best suggestion I would have for you is that you, that Councillor, that you recall the question on the motion to reconsider, and then that motion is then presented live again for council to consider whether or not you will be reconsidering it and then subsequently dealing with a proposed change to that, or it will be defeated.
Okay, thank you, Director Coates. Sorry, Councillor Smart, this is a difficult procedural issue. So I'm going to recall the motion. And so this, if we could reread the motion just for clarity, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Your Worship, and that's still on the screen. And so the motion that was made was that council reconsider the resolution, and it's actually number 2023-254, which was that council endorse the draft regulation and implementation plan of the sidewalk patio program and remove the recommendation for electric patio heaters. That is what you're considering whether or not to put back on the table live.
All right. Councillor Watson.
And to clarify, if it comes back live to the table, we can then have a discussion about what the alternate motion might be. Is that correct?
Your Worship, through you, and so that's absolutely correct. So if council were to reconsider this motion, it would be considered to be live on the table as if it hadn't been voted on originally.
So could I have someone move a reconsideration of the motion, please? Councillor Smart, is there a seconder? Councillor Appleton? Okay, so now, are there any comments or further questions? Councillor Smart.
Since we do have staff present here in the room, I wondered if we could ask staff if they can confirm whether or not the electric patio heaters were a requirement or a recommendation according to their report.
Mr. Green, would you mind answering that question? Thank you.
I will try. Busy trying to pull the report, but it's my understanding that the draft regulations said that electric patio heaters were required or are required. I'm pretty sure. I'm just busy trying to find that draft regulation that was presented to council on May 8th, but I'm pretty sure it was a requirement.
It's helpful. That was my recollection as well, that they were required. Thank you. So we have a live motion on the table. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes.
So, Your Worship, just for clarity then, live back on the table for your consideration is that motion right here. And I know, so council can dispose of that motion however you want, as if it was simply not been voted on at this point now. So amendments are possible to that motion.
So I would like someone to make this motion, please. Councillor Smart?
Through you, Mayor, to Mr. Coates, would it be appropriate then to make an amendment because the motion is already on the table?
This motion is live on the table as if it's been moved and seconded, and council can consider it as they do any other live motion.
Councillor Smart?
I move to amend the motion on the table to replace the word recommended with required, and to add the words at the end where patio heaters are provided.
Could I get a seconder for the amendment, please? Councillor Appleton seconds. Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Councillor Watson.
This may be a little pedantic, but if we're really trying to be clear here, I would like to move an amendment to the motion on the floor to extend it just slightly to say that Council endorse the draft regulation and implementation plan of the sidewalk patio program and remove the requirement in the draft regulation for electric patio heaters, and then whatever came, because yes, thank you. That's my suggested amendment to the motion.
Thank you. That's a friendly amendment. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Appleton. So is everyone clear about where we are now? Thank you. Mr. Green, do you have any further comments?
No, I did find out the draft regulation which says, requirements for heating systems, only electric infrared heaters are permitted. So that's what the draft regulation previously said.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And now we have to go to the motion itself.
Your Worship,
And-
just for clarity, and because my typing speed is challenged at the best of times. So what is before you is the main motion as amended, and that is that Council endorse the draft regulation and implementation plan of the sidewalk patio program and remove from the proposed regulation the requirement for electric patio heaters when patio heaters are provided.
Thank you very much, Mr. Coates. Thanks for all your help, by the way. So that's the motion. Do I have a mover? Oh, it has been moved. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? It passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, I think we've reached the end of the meeting, and I appreciate everyone's patience. Thank you very much. Thanks to all the staff that are here tonight. And could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Sorry? Oh, thank you. And second? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.